Hello, America. The FBI has rules lying to themselves. In other words, Antifa has collusions with uses of the word fascism, with uses of the word capitalism, with uses of the word socialism. When people are debating, they're using criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought, fact, treatment, nature, quality aspects in nature, relative slash hyperrelative to James Madison's declassified communications still being and haven't been replaced. Like why and how he's the only founder we know the name of. It's important. The experts of the sciences they have answers that are true always that are replaced. Like James Madison's plan is what caused the Constitutional Convention, what caused the Declaration of Independence, what caused the the American Revolution. Even the Civil War was caused by James Madison's plan, who didn't have free speech even once he was a president slash chief. His counter extortion plan forced the rest of the people to help. Northern colonies and southern colonies were already roles with slavery, even. All kinds of things they didn't want roles with because they were fact, treatment, nature, tortured, extorted, and fact, treatment, nature, enslaved, therefore physically. So they had no choice. Those laws, it wasn't just the laws. It was the difference of the guilt with the people with the interbranch or the people they were countering. Plus, per worse, at countries A through Z, which knew that nature itself would show humanity. One of those things, all those impositions, all those crazy laws were at once value as. Besides collusions with overt criminal enterprise, private ones encounters as collusions. Originally and still, that's what American history is about. Those crazy sick things. A sick method, singular by it, that made a whole bunch of methods, natures, needs, styles, identities of fake integrity, fake news, multi-front, collusion slash S with the three branches of government, only allowed to be originally and still. Specifically so they could keep that self-value now to get away with pretending things are debatable that are not. And simultaneously to pretend things that are debatable are not, in other words, pretending things are not debatable that are. Like our founders. George Washington wasn't our founder. He was extorted. And if anyone treated how he was extorted honestly, it would have brought up James Madison's plan to counter-extort everyone. George Washington came to Wethersfield, Connecticut, for example, at one of the founding locations, with a witch trials place right next to it. Slavery had already been entrenched in northern colonies and southern colonies. That means everyone already hurt themselves and others, and they were speaking anyway. The way the breaching method forced. There were internationally monitored conversations that measured and maintained everyone collusions against themselves and others, syntactically, therefore physically, and physically, therefore syntactically. In other words, this breaching method was entrenched since before religious messengers were born. Already the campuses, therefore the names of the people, the sciences, were styles of logic, natures of logic, criminally foreign influence, as criminal insidious natures of positive treatments, negative treatments, differences, treatments, therefore names treatments. Nature's identity generates totally different individual species bodies, each one made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies. And it generates, what demonstrates to us that we didn't invent how the species are of this volume science that way. Because there are even male and female with other species bodies, of individual bodies. Apart with how nature shows us and showed the ancients before the sciences became criminally foreign influenced. They appreciated how it shows, it's generating all grouped differences, or it's generating demonstrations to us that we are using systems or did use systems or will be using, even if we're going to use systems and we don't tell anyone, nature will demonstrate to us with negative value nature progressions acts in nature itself. generated as criminal insidiousness. See, this breaching method only allowed collusions with criminal insidiousness natures of fact treatment, nature, quality aspects, and natures of positive treatments and negative treatments, and differences treatments and negative treatment, and I names treatments simultaneously / hyper simultaneously, because it was his roles with that and with all natures of crime scenes, all natures of theory, all natures of convictions. The Connecticut Corrections offices and judicial branch offices have wire crime action methods with the F.B.I., ones that were and are used to keep them criminally foreign influenced. In their defense, it's relative to other countries are manifest the same way, and they are shared next to campuses in ways they are directed to hide and lie about, relative to things that are secret, that aren't even real secrets. We could discern this. And they demonstrate how that was exploited by the countries individually grouped and together. And then them pretending they're handed things like isms to get away with pretending things are debatable that are not. The names of the people of the sciences, to use a phrase from the Old Testament, including the names of the people, the experts on religions. They're reading the religious books out of sequence, in that it's a sequence shifting collusions and cover-ups. As those books were written with consciousness, that people A through Z would be collusion / S as fact, treatment, nature, styles, aspects, and natures, only allowed to be manifest. Otherwise, that body would be sensed, including if that body is a majority of people, including if that body is any united country, and it is easily adapted to by the hyperforeign breaching method. Any grouping of countries that tries to counter all the negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, while still as is, it still as is collusion / hypercollusion, collusions plural / hypercollusion singular. At countries A through Z, there are uses of isms that the breaching method already showed them they can't defend that. In other words, and their natures is actually recorded. It is effectively used to use all sides of cases in interbranch names and intelligence, foreign and domestic, as they are actually manifest, kept needing to hide. The same sequence shifts for ties to in different things relative to what they heard from their family members who knows their family. Not those aren't their actual motivations, even though there are real motivations. Their actual motivations are how there are remote uses of people already on all sides of criminal and civil cases, the interbranch, the intelligence tied to them, the news, the difference of intelligence at the news or next to them with predicate acts with facts methods. I am not a lawyer. I recorded how we could discern they have been collusion / S with predicate acts with facts methods, and organized crime, torture, extortion, fact treatment nature, therefore physical slavery method of people on a mass scale across the world, relative to how the breaching method only allowed the suburbs to be designed for people to be reliant upon food resources from other areas, jobs, titles, through and as systems, tactical ulterior, from natures that's generating all group differences, or showing us Earth's a special difference through ourselves is forced away from here. Even if we all agree, every country's A through Z and the people A through Z agree to the same plan and love it. We won't love it because nature will demonstrate. If we all agree to the same plan, we love it for those reasons. Nature will show us. As long as we're using systems, tactical ulterior from its own, it will not stop making negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures in demonstration of it. In demonstration of what pantheism more probably defined as leaf of Hadith before it was a part of Christianity or Catholicism. Or the Bibles, the Old Testament or the New Testament. The Old Testament has a guide up front to it. No one even knows about it. It dictates how to read that book. And the same thing with the Quran. The Quran has a guide up front. It says all that matters is if someone's going to be honest about their use of the name as the scientific value of the name of the God. I don't want to use the word God because and I'm translating a translation of the Quran. I want to say of that identity generating, all group differences. The one generating totally different individual species bodies of individual bodies, so we could discern this. So we could discern that fish have eyes, 2 eyes. They have quality aspects, bear, antelope. They have 2 eyes. They have quality aspects of nature, distinct, not 2 sexes. Nature comes with this hyper invisible but still discernible identity of value progression generating all things, nature's complete identity that we could discern to an extent. And where we could discern it to an extent, inseparable from all parts of that self. It has the rest of it are manifest as parts of it, the rest of the complete identity of itself. Just like your cells are that way. That's what this is nature showing us. The cells of plant life, cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall /S, and water in its elements, gases in its elements coming through, where we are being shown this identity of value progression /value progression. That is identity's course, identity's volume science per relativity /hyperrelativity. See, they're making things offensively, preemptively. They were shown needs that countries A through Z would have to self-value. Theories on relativity, where they have things pretended debatable that are not, where the names of the people of the sciences, also to use another phrase from the Old Testament, but noting this is a part from after this is a part with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil is after the part in the Old Testament that says only defend right here, where the names of the people of the sciences will come together, and the part that comes before it. And so this is what Decipher brings and what nature shows us. This is relative to how nature's identity is generating all group differences or showing us when we are using systems abridged from its own. Nature itself teaches us about the value of the Constitution getting unabridged. Nature itself shows us that we have failed to get it unabridged because other things, others ourselves, were blamed right where the hyperforeign was as needed to be blamed. And it kept and keeps countries individually grouped and together. And then all groupings of countries too. Your locations, areas, and states. Self-value, fact, nature, qualities, aspects of nature, styles. You're going to be, with a grouping of countries, you're going to be the same. And it easily is adapted to their syntax. They can't defend that and afford to counter where and how it has had collusion /S self-value, right where no one self-values it too. So then they debate and their motives and then things like that, narratives and natures, styles used to screen their motives relative to the breaching method. The breaching method has roles with your motives when you replace or pretend it's debatable, where people use things like how we have black people's whites of eyes as means to discern. There's not honest debate with the people attacking the names of the sciences, or countering them, or the people as them. Their syntax is breached, where James Madison's plan is the only correct answer for what caused the American Revolution, the Civil War. I mean, even the Civil War. His plan caused everything. His plan and the breaching method caused everything too, because they had to leave that entrenched. We're supposed to explain that the things that no one had free speech, even once he was the president /chief, James Madison, the only founder we know the name of. He still had to leave things declassified because everyone was being measured and maintained. We were directed to understand this. They were not just internationally monitored conversations involved with this. Even measuring and maintaining self-valued rules with slavery. Everyone hurting each other, every human hurting women's difference, pretending it's debatable, believing it's debatable. In other words, there are delusions that everyone has that could be healed, that are simultaneously relative to the recorded criminally foreign influence, fact, nature, quality aspects of nature. and uses of things that appear to be theory. They're not theory. They have been, in other words, everyone was misinformed too, since you guys were little kids. These are principles that you should have understood right away about the predicate acts and facts methods against human, the hypernative difference, and how it was showing us. It was a breaching method that was dividing Native Americans from Native Americans, not to go, divide and conquer. In other words, this is a breaching method that has the natures of unity it keeps too. It does both things. But everything it does and did was through ourselves. So in the future, styles, needs, and natures can't afford to have fact, human nature, quality aspects of nature as actually discernible, discerned regarding the past, what is active now, and to come. See native drum, vaccines, in other words. So WFSB has connections to CBS News and WTNH, their sources, have roles with former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, a whole bunch of other countries, people from Russia, people from Korea, people from Ukraine, involved with the news and their sources, and interbranch uses of their kids, also with the kids of foreign and domestic medical families, planting evidences on Facebook and with interbranch family members. Cover up, sequence shifts. They have the organized crimes with their kids, organized crime methods. They're only capable of being predators. Collusions with, it's relative to how they could get away with pretending not to be able to discern all that associated with the people on the other side of the buildings and having to come through that with New York City. In the rap videos, for example, when you see the buildings in the rap videos, and aggression. This is a certain type. There are multi-front. Every human difference, every difference. Then further, hyper-additionally, every human difference was attacked and was helped through the breaching method roles. And then two, anyone noting that is sensed through our own. And they do things like prevent us from speaking about short words, about World Trade Center attack predicate acts, about the news collusions interstates, and their sources. In other words, there are only three branches of government, clearer than easier, really, very, very easily. They are kept criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, wrought, countries A through Z. They were child abused, the same way I caught them involved as adults and kids with child abusing other people and making them self-body rules too, with the extent of where they have everyone speak through others and recorded. And the breaching method knows that this is recorded too. It makes confession. It uses confessions tied to this in the form where they're pretending they don't make confessions, like when they're using isms and defending that, pretending they have legitimate science. They're using their knowledge of good and evil to get over on what came first, principal things. And the breaching method knew that people are doing this against James Madison would simultaneously be self-valuing all styles, needs, and natures that are and have been denying what nature itself communicates to us, what we all agree about. But people jump in and pretend they don't agree dishonestly, and they get away with it, including relative to organized crime acts and methods with the names associated with the colleges and universities, and all ages and natures of campuses, including fire campuses and medical campuses. A bunch of fire department families are implying there are proofs that they have roles with nuclear threats and with the interagencies, and with the drugs and things like that. So then they have to start acting for things like that. So they have them trained like that. But those campuses too, the campuses training them are criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, wrought. A bunch of people with the whiting forensics have roles with state police, families, interstates, involved with a whole bunch of different countries, foreign and domestic military, involved with the World Trade Center attackers, not using any of their evidences. That's time collusions they had too with the court next to it. the Ninth Circuit Court the morning of the World Trade Center attack. The court itself, from inside the court, involved with the sequence shifts and names on both sides of that case, involved with predicate acts interstates, also faked for them. A bunch of people, a bunch of officers forging and switching names, intercities, involved on and off Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, increasingly with intelligence families that used to live on my street, involved with multiple police departments, with all kinds of falsified police reports and organized crime acts and methods roles and collusions, but also with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the names that next to body dumping spots and roles with time use /yes of years apart, and at the same time, untimely deaths intercities connected, and confessions. See, people are making confessions to others with communications, the way the breaching method knew they would. Because the breaching method has everyone making confessions to him. It's the proverbial devil, even if it's no longer around, a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. We could all blame it at the same time because there are enough evidences to prove that has been. This is really why and how, for example, the suburbs look the way they do from America to Russia to Ukraine, even though while they were being tortured, extorted, in fact, human nature enslaved, and measured and maintained collusions against themselves and others by overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, the witch trials, court nature of, witch slavery rules, interbranch, northern colonies and southern colonies. Then they're going to speak about the crimes that those people commit. They're not going to be able to do it legitimately. Not going to be able to afford to have discerned what how everything is actually recorded and was. They're not going to. Which remote uses of names A through Z of the people of the sciences originally still. That's one of the things we could discern relative to Black people's rights of life, how this was left out, even though it's inseparable from our proper teaching of America's founders' communication, which also requires us understanding why and how James Madison is the only founder that they had the security to let us know the name of. And they had a plural amount of founders also that enabled the means to the leverage to counter-extort people at key locations, to make them break the rules, not just of the internationally monitored conversations and of the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, slavery rules even. We have to understand this breaching method with human differences and with differences themselves. Again, this breaching method knew that nature would be demonstrating to countries A through Z that we have been using differences, tactical ulterior from nature. The breaching method knew that it would contain nature demonstrates to us a human fact, human nature breaching method is one of those things that sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly, all those distinct affronts to distinct types of differences, what they were valued as equally. They were all part of their equally valued as a human fact, human nature breaching method. And nature itself is teaching us about the value of the Constitution unabridged. But those abridgments discernible, including even when they're correctly discernible, be caused by criminal foreign influences. All sides are still criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence. So they can't discern what is fluent through countries A through Z with our fact human there's a quality of fact human nature. There's an identity of sophistication associated with people, with the agents. The administrations are not permitted. Not one president / chief has been permitted identity of sophistication legitimate. They have, in other words, regarding this, regarding criminal foreign influences / hyper-criminally foreign influences, regarding James Madison's communications replaced, regarding James Madison's plan where it's the only correct answer. It wasn't about a tea tax while there was slavery entrenched north and south. They were only allowed to hide. They were only allowed to pretend fake things at the same time. They had to orchestrate what they were going to pretend. They had to use truths for lies. This is the president slash chief is trying to show everyone's doing, but they're forcing all the presidents slash chiefs to entertain that. They try to address it with their short words. They fake and change what they said before that. In other words, the overt criminal enterprises and private ones, the family members of campuses are shown, and overt criminal enterprises and private ones shown they need to hide life progressions at the same time. And they use crime methods to do such. All natures of investigations, investigators and their campuses never stop being part of the problem too. See, the guilt, everyone wants to speak about guilt, leaving out the breaching method. So only people that do get it wrong shaped precedents and statutes for a breaching method that used and is using them remotely. Yourselves, Americans. Please get them on paper, one name and sequence. This is all recorded. It's about with the World Trade Center attack. The school book depository recorded involved with the narratives and natures associated with all sides, including the assassinators or assassinator of President slash Chief Kennedy. The school book depository, just as a modern equivalent, they have syntax that is recorded criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought, / hypercriminally foreign influence. That's the value of replacing James Madison's communications and the founders behind him that were declassified for us, pretending things that are debatable that are not. As foreign collusions, they say, oh, George Washington owned slaves. The databases were criminally foreign influence. Everyone had to hide their roles countering. So you guys don't even know that for certain. And even if it was, everyone was a slave to themselves. The same thing with the Jim Crow narratives regarding Mark Twain. The Mark Twain house and the Harry Beecher Stowe house and conjunctions to it and to that are also intercities involved with Wethersfield Police and with the state corrections office and judicial branch offices in Connecticut and Wethersfield, Connecticut, involved interstates of Washington, D.C. people and with New York City's World Trade Center people and intelligence next to them and intelligence next to networks and exceptions like public television has roles with Russians and people from Ukraine involved with the former police chief Centron, other former Wethersfield police chief, or more, with the 80 Churchill Drive, further associated with a Phil Collo, involved with the Bob Chase with Whiting Forensics, and some Mendez police, and Dillon police, and the retired police chiefs, and the intimate ties with falsified police reports, fake transcripts, fake ties to little kids. At the Wethersfield police station, when I was a kid, they faked conversations with me, and then pretended that through the news too, to cover up live aggressions. And as an adult, they put me in a fake car. I never had a word of conversation with the older Mendez police brother. He only knows me through others, and I only know him through others. And he has time collusions with Saudi Arabia that he forced the collusions with them, and with the Wethersfield police chiefs and the others, with the principal upskirt nature and other sexual and medical offenders of kids. There are a whole bunch of people that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed the Leahy family has been influencing them to identify fraud, slanders against me. A Leahy family also faked conversations with me through the mail to people, and I can't get a response. They arose with Hartford Hospital with foreign and domestic intelligence agencies. A bunch of people directly and indirectly involved with former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, involved with where they're making confessions too, in other words. These are people that don't know how to speak for law because they came through criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought campuses. So they want to use their knowledge of good and evil, how they're the only ones that were educated on the law, criminally foreign influence, to get over on us, to get over on correlation nature, to get over on sequence nature. And as styles of logic, natures of logic can't defend that and afford to be discerned, and afford to be appreciated, that quality of fact should be nature necessary to be able to take a subject treatment proper, like regarding all this, which inside the syntax of the books in the school book depository, for example.